Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Reverse Sweep. We're back again this week. I'm back. It's not just a duo show. I was a little bit ill. I'm feeling better now. We're back and we're rolling. 2 weeks until Major 3. We had some interesting matches, some snoozers, some better matches this week. And we're going to hop right into it. We do have a special edition of the show. We're going to hop into a tier list. I know a lot of you guys have put in the comments that you want to see us dive into a tier list this year. And so we're kind of doing a halfway mark where we're about 2.5 weeks in, close to halfway mark on the year. And but before that, Aches has a little bit of news for us.
So we did pick a giveaway winner. I don't know who it is yet. You won't tell me. I've been bugging you, but we will find out later this episode. But yeah, just wanted to give a shout out. A lot of you were in the comments. A lot of you had some bad things, but a lot of you had some nice things to say. But yeah, man, if you guys aren't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe now. I think we're going to be doing a lot more giveaways in the future, and so obviously you got to be subscribed. But other than that, thank you all for the comments, and I'm glad we got a winner. So we'll find out who that is soon.
And I will say I've picked the winner. I used a random YouTube like comment grabber or whatever they are, and the person who won is well deserving. I read the comment, they left their Twitter, and I was like,
I saw a lot of people didn't leave their Twitter, and that we gave clear instructions. I thought I gave phenomenal instructions last episode.
It was clear, but I mean, some people didn't listen, some people did. It wasn't a criteria to get picked. It just so happened that this person followed Pat's instructions perfectly, and karma came back, and he's gonna have a jersey coming his way. But before we get into the tier list, I kind of want to touch on ranked play really quickly. Ranked play has kind of just gotten dropped in our lap, and we didn't really know what to expect out of it. But overall, I think that it's been like a pretty huge success. Obviously, Chris, you've had a lot of success with streams and kind of grinding for that #1 spot. And I think the overall like Call of Duty community has had a pretty positive first experience with it. But I kind of wanted to just bring it up and chat about it and kind of see what your guys' thoughts are on ranked play dropping.
Oh, I mean, I'm good to start because I played the fuck ton of it. But yeah, rank play was a W. I honestly think that they staggered the release of rank play just to get interest in the game again, because I feel like that's just something that Call of Duty does, where like it starts to die off, and then they kind of just like start releasing like certain piece of content that I feel like the game kind of needs to stir up hype. But personally, just before we actually talk about the rank play, I think it needs to just be in the game, like immediately when the CDL first announces its rule set. There's no reason why it shouldn't. They've experimented with so many different formats, but the format that they needed has always been there. Activision, Blizzard, etc. They have Overwatch. They have a very successful rank play. I think they followed a lot of that this season with the SR and last year with Vanguard. They also had the SR and the top 250 stuff. So I'm pretty happy with it. I think a lot of casual players have started to kind of like get into the CDL stuff with the addition of rank play, because you'd be surprised how many people come into my streams and they just found out about rank play and like competitive stuff, and a lot of people are getting into it, and they're like asking about loadouts and classes, and they're like, wow, bro, this guy makes it look so easy. And I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm 4-stacking with other pro players. But I think the system is really good, man. I really hope they keep it this way. I feel like there's pretty good incentives. Like there's a lot more they can do. Like they put out the banners and stuff like that with the pro players' faces on it. That thing's cool. I feel like they can still do more, but the basis of the system is incredible right now. Pat?
Yeah, I think it's worth noting too. This was designed by Treyarch, right? We saw the lead game designer at Treyarch. I think Maddox also tagged like one of Treyarch's system designers. So I think this was again, we've talked about it in the past, but Treyarch usually hit the nail on the head when they work on projects that are more catered to the competitive community, where we've obviously harped on other developers in the past for not doing that. But yeah, I think Treyarch knocked it out of the park with this rank play experience. As someone who's designing a rank play experience on another title, like it's awesome to see how they did it. And I guess the only downside for me is that it's just on Modern Warfare 2. the system looks awesome.
Yeah, I think another only downside to it, but it's not really like ranked it's not in terms of the system. I think it's the amount of cheaters. I still think it's always a losing war when it comes to encountering cheaters. But I honestly don't even know if Ricochet works. It doesn't feel like it does. That's the anti-cheat that Call of Duty uses. They named it their own anti-cheat, Ricochet. And I'm like, bro, I wouldn't be surprised if they were just like, yo, we have an anti-cheat, but there isn't one. We just kind of said we have one. But there's a ton of hackers. And then another issue I feel like is I don't think they should allow you to 4Q. I think if they do allow you to 4Q, it should be a completely separate playlist where teams of 4 can essentially like scrim each other when they queue up. But I think the max they should have is a duo queue, and then have a separate queue for 4, because I think 4 queuing, to be honest, even though I do it a lot, and the only reason I do it is because if you do encounter a cheater, it's the only way to beat them is if you're stacked up with other players and have good communication, stuff like that. But I just think they shouldn't allow you to 4Q in the normal ranked playlist. I think it just ruins the experience for people because they're just getting dumped on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that, like, from my point of view, I have like more friends that I've seen that have now picked up ranked play again and haven't touched COD in years because there's just a reason to play it. And they're now watching the matches too because they're playing on the same maps and playing the same game modes each day, each night with their homies. And then they go and watch the matches, and it's the same thing. It's way easier to follow. It's way easier to understand what's going on. And so I think overall, like, from a casual perspective, I've seen like more content, and I've actually been surprised by how good a lot of content is done on TikTok and some of the short form platforms and YouTube, with some of the ranked play stuff. So overall, I think it's just been a good time for Call of Duty. Now, I do want to ask, like, Treyarch did it. Do we think that this is maybe, hopefully, finally, like, Treyarch is just going to take that upon themselves for future titles? Like, it would make sense. They did it for a non-Treyarch title. Of course, you would assume they would do it for their own. Any thoughts on that?
I think we're in a unique position now where, like, I don't know if we'll ever have a COD again that's just like strictly one dev running it, like running the show. I think with where Activision is nowadays, like, I mean, you've seen the articles, like they had like 3,500 dev members working on Modern Warfare 2, and that's split, having Treyarch, Sledgehammer, Call of Duty, or Infinity Ward, external studios,
etc., etc.
So I think we're interested or entering this era, and I think we already have, where it's like almost every game is going to be a project that's obviously spearheaded and maybe supervised by whatever the main studio is for the title, but like it's a collaborative effort between all these studios. So I think the one upside is, like, we do know that there's going to be a Treyarch game coming in 2024, and so granted they obviously led the systems design here for this ranked play. So I mean I imagine with how successful it's been that it will instantly be implemented in their title in 2024.
Yeah, hopefully. That would be great, but we'll see, man. I think it's kind of inexcusable that we don't launch with, like, well, I wouldn't even say launch. Like, it shouldn't launch with the game just because we don't even have a rule set out. There needs to be a rule set made and then release it with the rule set, with the announcement of the COD League and when it's starting, like, boom, rank play.
Yeah, but there's ways you can get around that, like preseasons, like, I think having ranked play is beneficial to be available, even if it's not the fully polished version where it's like perfect rule set, perfect, ranks or whatever.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Anyways, we will move on over to the tier list. Let me switch screens for us really quick. You guys are all good on your end, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, we'll dive into this. Obviously, there's been a lot of roster changes over the last couple weeks. So some of this has changed since the beginning of the year, and we'll kind of have something going into Major 3 that we can maybe look back on before champs and see how things have changed. But yeah, I guess let's kick it off with the LA Thieves.
A tier.
No questions.
Yeah. I think these guys are just so, kind of, it's funny. Like I look at them and they're like, I can pick like 6 teams that I just know they're better than every day. Like, you know what I mean? Like that they should beat 99% of the time. Um, Obviously coming off an insane Major 2 run, which I don't know if we'll ever see a run like that, but they they're just really well rounded right now. They're all playing well. Kenny has been frying as of late. The best thing that I think this team has going for them though is their step up from online to LAN, right? Like we talked about that at Major 2. We've talked about it before. Is like they hit a new gear when they get to LAN. And I think that they're always going to be competitive against the top teams just solely because of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just don't see another team. Well, I don't see one other team that really competes with them in the aspect, and they're going to be one step up further. But outside of that, I think the Thieves are just a super well-rounded team, and I'm a big fan of the roster. We've already said like when they were struggling, they just need to figure it out. I think they're carrying their momentum that they got from that event. Like I said, I don't feel like we're going to see the old Thieves from the beginning of the year where they just like go to events and shit the bed. I feel like they've really started to figure out their game and their game in general with their map pools and all that stuff. Because before when we did our tier list, I remember I was like, dude, these guys have like no niche. I don't even know what they're good at. At the event, we started
Because
to
they
find
weren't
out.
good at anything.
Yeah, we started to find out all their strong suits, and they've been carrying that to their online matches, which is good to see. So, yeah, A tier definitely.
Cool. And then just a quick question on them. I have seen some people talking about the fact that they're playing out of LA. Does that play much of a factor in the online matches? Or is it kind of just like jibber jabber along with the rest of the noise?
Well, there's like 4 other teams that are playing in LA too right now.
Yeah. I've heard it mostly associated with them, and because they like being lackluster at some points online and then showing up and doing well on LAN.
I want to say yes, just because I'm from LA, but we're not in that era anymore of playing
everyone
on
has
people's
fiber.
hosts. Everyone has fiber. Everyone they connect to servers that are neutral, or they get the inflated ping, which is an issue entirely in itself. But I don't think that's true, man. I feel like for example, when we play ranked, if I play ranked with any of the West Coast guys that are on the Thieves or like even the LAG, and they host the rank play lobby, when they load up into the rank play lobby, they're on 2 ping.
Yeah.
Just like when OpTic hosts on their rank play lobbies, they pull the Dallas server, they're on 2 ping. So like the connections are equal. They obviously put people on fair servers. I don't think that's a thing. They have servers now they practice on that are
2 ping
pretty
is
fair.
crazy.
Like it's not a thing anymore. It used to be, definitely though.
Okay, cool. On to Las Vegas Legion. First time saying that without Paris.
C tier for me.
Yeah, C tier. I don't think they're bottom of the barrel, but I think they're pretty mid.
Well,
in
the
my
weird thing
opinion.
about this team is like they made this change. They got rid of Prolu, added 2Real, and it's like before they made that change, SND was their bread and butter, and I feel like they've gotten worse at search, and it's maybe a slight bump in respawn, but like not a bump that really like puts them in the conversation. I still feel like they're super inconsistent across the board, especially TJ. Like the fact that TJ can have like a series where he drops like 2 12 bombs and SNDs, but in like all the respawns, he's like a 0.6. Like I think he still has to figure out the respawn. He hasn't. Some of the series, Clay's like by far and away their best player. This team is just still kind of all over the place, and I think Chris, to kind of what you used to think about the Thieves, I'm kind of now thinking the same thing about the Legion. Like I don't know what they're good at. I don't know what they can rely on in a series anymore, or even in their personnel, right? Like I don't know who they can just be like, yo, this guy's gonna perform this upcoming match. They're kind of all over the place.
Yeah, but I still think outside of their series that they had against FaZe, they still looked relatively competitive. They were able to beat the Ultra. Was it the Ultra or the Thieves? It was one or the other. They beat one of those
They beat
teams.
the Thieves.
Thieves, yeah. I think
Yeah,
it was
they beat the
Thieves.
Thieves at the beginning of this split, and we already said Thieves is an A-tier team. So I mean, and they did it by winning respawns, right? They won, like it wasn't a Neslo.
It was a 3-1, yeah.
It was a 3-1 with them winning all 3 respawns.
No. They won. No. I don't think so. No, because 2Real got shit on the first map. Remember, like really bad.
Oh yeah.
And then he fried the next 2 respawns.
Yeah, so they won the search. They won the search in 2 respawns. So yeah, I mean, I still think they've improved. I don't think they're as dominant as they were in search before, but like realistically, sample size wise, we've seen them lose one SND to like not to the Thieves, so to the team they played after. I can't remember who that was. Sorry, it's been a long freaking week. But they lost one to the team they played after, and then they lost it to FaZe. But like, I feel like that's expected. So I'm still not sold on them. Like, oh, they're not good at search. This is like their hardest split, so they're playing all the best teams. If they're not gonna, if they can't consistently win X, Y, and Z game mode against a team, I'm not gonna fault them for it. I still think these guys are still a step up from the bottom of the barrel teams, even though their points might not show it.
Yeah. On to everybody's favorite OpTic Texas. I kind of want to chat a little bit about this past weekend's matches, just because they're one of the fresher teams with the new roster changes. They had very opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to like performances. So what are our thoughts on good old OpTic?
I still think until proven that they are gonna get to that level that they had, it's because right now, based on their online performance, I can't see them placing top 4. Like right now, like guaranteed. Like I can't be like, oh, they're 100% in the top 4 conversation. I think they're still pretty high up there, but I think for me, they're definitely like top of B. I don't know if I can put them in A. I think there's only 2 teams that, at least based off of their current split and how they look right now going into Major 3, that I can put into A, and I don't think OpTic is one of them right now, at least. I think
agree.
top of B is probably where they should go right now.
I mean, I agree. They got world starred right by the Ultra. They world starred the Rokkr. Like this team is still kind of a question mark for me. Who's the third team they played? Do you remember?
It was LAG, which they beat last map, but it was their first game.
Oh yeah. So they went 2-1, right? And they beat Rokkr and LAG.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and they obviously Ultra took care of business, and I think we're gonna put Ultra in A tier. So yeah, I think they're a step below them. I think B is comfy.
Who do they? I want to know. I'm actually gonna check right now. I want to see who
Next
they
week
play
they play
next
NYSL and FaZe.
Yeah, so they're playing another
okay.
A tier team and an S tier team. So I think that'll be the real test.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that'll be the real test. Obviously I'm a fan of Ghosty. I think Ghosty is a great player, but I still don't know if he's going to be completely the right addition, if he's going to be able to elevate everyone in this roster to play at their best. But right now, just based on the results that we've had up until now, I think top of B is fair. I think based on the results next week, we can potentially move them up or keep them in the same place.
You know what's funny though? I feel like this team is gonna be like a noob slayer team. I feel like every team that we place below them, or even maybe in B with them, I feel like they'll beat 99% of the time, but they'll always struggle with the teams that we put above them. Like, obviously we talked about Ultra, but like the NYSLs, the FaZe, the Thieves, like I feel like if this team's gonna struggle, it's just gonna be against those like star-studded lineups that are gonna outslay them. Because I feel like this OpTic team really relies, like, I mean, we were talking about earlier, Chris, like when that listening against Rokkr, like when they're able to slay like that, when Huke is able to just run wild on the map and drop a 1.3, same with Shotzi, their comms sound great. Like, yeah, this team's gonna fry, but I just don't see them being able to do that against the likes of these other superstar teams.
Yeah, I think that's just gonna be my question when they play NYSL and then FaZe next week, is like they're playing against arguably, like, Ultra was like we had Ultra winning. We had Ultra, I think, in our bracket winning the tournament.
Yeah.
Or like not winning the tournament, getting to the final for the most part. They obviously disappointed, but like based on the results online, like Ultra's basically an A tier team. Like they're on the cusp of being championship caliber, at least by their online results. And I think FaZe obviously is definitely an S tier team. So I'm interested to see how they fare on both sides of the spectrum. I think Ultra is a pretty damn good respawn team right now in their online stage, and I think FaZe is obviously the best search and destroy team in everything that they've been playing. So they're going to get a taste of, or not Ultra, sorry, it's New York Subliners that they're playing. I think New York Subliners is a really good respawn team right now, and then FaZe is a really good search team. So they're going to play like damn near the best of the best in both game modes. So we're gonna be able to see how well rounded this OpTic team is with their new player. And yeah, I think fairly right now, top of B's where they're at for sure.
Okay. Now, Chris, I know you're high on Ghosty. Pat, I don't know if you've shared like fully, but what are your like honest thoughts on Ghosty so far?
I think he's good. I mean, it sounded like I briefly had a convo with him. He sounds like a super smart kid, with a great head on his shoulders. My big thing is like he's coming into a roster with, not really any veterans. Realistically, like I mean, yeah, Shotzi and Hoot can be called veterans in maybe, but like they're still like the young kind of like Jetpack era Call of Duty kids. And so I think he fits in that age gap wise. But he's coming into it, I think, putting in a role where like he's having to be very responsible for like leading the charge in comms and like coordination and like again like that can work if the other guys are on. But it's like we've seen it before, like when people aren't getting kills, like how you kind of manage that style of play, like especially with someone like Kyler, right, who's very hot or cold. To me it's just like is he going to be utilized the way that they wanted to utilize him? So to me, I mean, I think it was a solid pickup, but I don't necessarily think Illy was a problem. So I think there was obviously some internal issues, but I mean, I don't think they got worse. I just think it's kind of like a plateau change with like maybe they improve, but again, I think it's going to be the big test against, did they improve to be able to beat some of these top dogs?
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. On to London. The Royal
D.
Ravens.
The lowest of D. Maybe not the lowest, but to me, they're a D tier team.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get a win. They were like, and they're everything. They're getting smoked. Then they finally got a game 5 win today against the Gorillas in what I deem the Burger Bowl. So
Yeah, I think D's fair, but I'm starting to kind of realize that like even with like the Ravens, like as much as like they can't get a win and the only win they got was against another team that is also struggling, um this league's pretty damn competitive, man. Like I feel like with Ravens, like they do push a lot of teams and have close games, but like they just can't close the maps at all. It seems like up until today. So, um even though they're in a D, even though they're in the D tier, I don't think their T is indicative of like what they actually do in matches. Just pure series results, I guess. I don't know. Weird team for sure. They definitely need to make changes, but I don't know. They're in such a shit spot, man. Like I feel like every time they have a close series, it's like, oh, we could have beat FaZe or we could have beat this team. It's just like hurting them even more because they're not like going out there and trying to like improve their roster because I feel like they're just all wildly inconsistent. Period.
yeah.
I was gonna ask.
Series.
Yeah, I was gonna ask in regards to like roster changes in general. Are we pretty much at the we're kind of sticking with it until the end of Major 3 at this point in the qualifiers, or do you think there'll be any other changes between now and
There's no way there's any before the major.
Yeah,
okay. I think after this major will be the last time anyone makes a change unless there's an emergency or some shit in the camp hits the fan. I think after Major 3, if you don't see any changes, unless there's just like unless somebody is getting absolutely smoked, like maybe they throw in their sub. But
Yeah.
outside of that, like nah. I think it's probably chalked after Major 3, and I think they'll be the rosters you see for champs and on or for the rest of the majors and onward.
Yeah, I kind of figured that. Now on
And
to oh, sorry, go ahead, Pat.
Well, I was just gonna say, speaking of changes, I think one team that's probably in that boat of they're stuck for the rest of the year is the Gorillas. I don't know if you guys saw the information about their parent company, the Guard, the Gorillas, the Gladiators. I think it's made clear that Cronky Sports and Entertainment is pulling out of esports entirely, wanting to sell these franchise spots, let go of every basically employee they had except crucial ones to at least run the operations for the rest of the year. So I think Gorillas are in a boat where like they all know they're stuck with this roster and they're just gonna have to make the most of it. With that being said, I have them as a D tier team.
What real question, just to touch on that? What happens if they can't sell their roster?
I think
Like,
that just
there's
comes down
no-
to a conversation between Cronky Esports,
Yeah.
Cronky Sports Entertainment and Activision.
Yeah, like I wonder if there's something in like their contract where they're like they have to like find a buyer to pull out, and they have to continue to like obviously have like
I,
even if it's the smallest of scale operation.
Which I think is
Up
what would
until that
happen.
yeah,
happens.
I was
think
gonna say I
that's
don't.
probably what would
There
happen.
probably is something where they can't just leave their spot and say, you know what, I'm done paying. Like they definitely probably are locked in until they find another
They'll
buyer.
probably just have to do
I-
the minimum with everyone.
Yeah, they just have to minimum field a team. Yeah,
I could see them. I could see them selling the spot for cheap to get rid of it, though. I just don't know
that's what I think happens.
who's gonna want to get involved with it. But it is unfortunate, and I was gonna ask if you felt like, does that play any part in how they feel about the season, and kind of what's going on, knowing that that's kind of at the end of the road, no matter whether they win every tournament for the rest of the year.
I think it's mixed. I think there's part of them that feels like, you know, this is their last opportunity to like prove themselves to maybe get on a roster next year. But yeah, for the most part, I think you could look at basically all these players except Alec and say, you know, without this opportunity on the Gorillas, these guys are probably all in challengers anyway this year. And so unless they do come out and fry and like really make a name for themselves, I think they're most likely going to be headed back to challengers at the end of this season. Which is unfortunate, but
I still could see a world where they keep one or two players, especially in this point in the Call of Duty Lifeline. I don't feel like there's that many up and coming like really good SMGs. Like even if they sent, let's say, Joe Deceives and Exceed back to challengers, or like Assault, even like, bro, what SMGs from challengers are they picking up? Like they're literally the best. That when they were playing in challengers, they were the best submachine gun players. So like, who do they pick up? I feel like for the most part, even if these guys don't do relatively well, I think a couple of them will stay and they'll try to like find other, you know,
well,
like some people to change rosters.
maybe,
with.
but you got to consider if it is a situation where like basically the org is done from an operational standpoint and they're just fielded minimum contracts to just play the game and have zero support, which is a very likely scenario at the end of this year. Do these guys even want to be there? Like it's kind of like a.
Did any of them sign multi-year? I feel like thought they
Alec
did.
Varsities is
Yeah.
but that'll
but
that'll just be done at the end of the year. Like
yeah,
Yeah.
they can change it. I'm pretty sure that even if they said, oh yes, here's your 3-year whatever deal, like I'm sure they can always go back and renegotiate.
No,
I'm sure
it's all options. Like it's all team options. So they just wouldn't pick up the option.
Yeah, exactly.
Either way, I think the Gorillas is just they're
Oh
just
yeah,
done.
they're also a D tier team. I think I was still kind of hopeful sometime that they would kind of like relight their fire and get their hard point back to what it was, but they just looked abysmal, man. I mean, they literally lost to the only other team that's in D.
Yeah.
Or like one of the only other teams that's in D.
When I look at this too, the way I separate C and D is like I think they're both equally as bad as each other, but C is like I have a little bit of hope, and D is like I have zero hope.
Yeah, I think D is like where I put D is like guaranteed not a champs, like not gonna be a champs.
That's tough. Shout out to Exceed for a nice little 1v4 today, though.
Yeah, unless there's like a crazy run at an event or something that like it's just not making champs. Okay, so who we got next? Boston.
Gains and Breach.
I'd say
this
B.
one's tough.
I'd say they're B.
I want to agree with you, but like,
who was their schedule? I think they've had an easy schedule. No, they beat London.
They just lost their last game.
They beat London. Who else did they beat?
Did they play Florida?
They beat. No, they lost to Florida.
Yeah,
so that's an L.
So they lost to Florida.
Who did they beat? Was it Toronto with Standy on it?
Nah.
Now I gotta look at the schedule.
excuse the.
Yeah, we're so far into the season, bro. I lose track.
So they beat Toronto.
LAG.
That's who it was. So they beat Toronto when they had Standy on there.
And they beat LAG.
I think they're a B tier team. I think they're at a point where like they should beat Paris. They should beat Gorillas. They beat London. And even though they lost to the Mutineers, I feel like they probably just had like a bad day. Because I don't like they've looked relatively good versus like every other team they've played. I feel like they probably just came out and had a bad day.
So they beat a broken Ultra,
Yeah, it was.
lost to Florida, and then beat London and beat LAG. I don't know. I don't
I
know
think
if
they're
I'm
bottom.
confident in them.
I think I still have them. I still feel like they should like because I can't put. I don't think putting them at C is right yet. What's their? Dude, this week of matches was so boring and like so many of them were just so like people were just playing all these low ass tier teams for the most part. That like when we're sitting here gauging some of this stuff, like the results of next week could like sway my opinion a little bit differently because I feel like some of these teams are going to play a lot better opponents.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think they're either top. I think they're either top of C based on how they do next week, or bottom of B.
I'm okay giving it bottom of B.
Yeah, I still have hope in this team with Beans. I think they're going to look better with Beans, and they're going to actually be able to put up a fight, a better fight with against some of these teams, and maybe take a few series from some of them. But I do like the addition of Beans. I feel like Beans has been playing pretty damn good. Granted, they lost to Florida versus the two teams they did beat. Beans.
I would agree, but he's a
Did
little
play
bit
well
more
with it.
inconsistent than I was expecting. Like I wasn't expecting him to come out and be a superstar, but I was expecting some level of consistency. And he had like a really rough first series, like a 0.6, fried the next series like a 1.3, and then got like smoked the next series like a 0.7. So it's like he's kind of all over the place for me. I kind of want to see him even it out and be a little bit more consistent.
The only thing I have though is like he does look good in search because in the series that they beat Toronto, he looked great in search. In the series that they went last map with who was it? LAG or what? Yeah, they went to last map with LAG, right? He
London,
was
I
it LAG?
think.
It was London. Sorry, in the series that they went last map with London, he did really good in that search. Even though he had a shit series, he did really good in that search, which obviously allowed them to win a game 5. And then he has looked good in search versus the other teams. So I think that's like where he's gonna shine. I feel like that's something that Boston needed because their respawns have been overall pretty good. I think Wake is a superstar and Nero's coming into his own. I feel like they're all getting a little bit more consistent in their gameplay. I think they just needed somebody they can rely on in SND, and I think Beans is up there. So I don't know. I like the pickup, but we'll see how they develop with their next couple matches.
Seattle
Surge.
It's a B, but I don't know where to put them in B. They're not ahead of OpTic, but it's like any given day they could be the last team in B.
I think based on their performances this split, at the very least, they've been able to win a search and destroy. They've won 2. Granted, it's the same map twice. Even in their Asilo SNDs that they've played, they do look like they're competitive. I feel like they're really close to that being in their map pool. Well, it is in their map pool, but like them being able to like actually take it versus some of these teams. I feel like they've made improvements in that game mode, so I'm gonna give them the B. I don't want to put them all the way down in C because if they kept losing searches,
they played Rokkr, Florida, and Thieves, right?
Yeah,
they just beat Florida. Did they beat Rokkr, lost to Thieves, beat Florida?
Yeah, they 3-0'd. They 3-0'd Rokkr.
Which Rocker's having an abysmal stage.
What was the Thieves map count? Was it a 3-0? No. It was a 3-1, yeah?
Yeah.
But the SND was close, right? Pretty sure it was like a 6-4. Yeah, I think these guys have made improvements. I think I'm excited to see how they do.
Coaster improvement.
Yeah. I think I'm excited to see how these guys do on LAN because I think on LAN they've, for the most part, usually are a better team. But them showing signs of life in search and not getting fully stomped and then winning searches now, it's a pretty good sign for this team, I feel like. But still, I know you're on the top. You're on this this train with me, Pat. I joined you on this train. I think they need to get. I think they need to get rid of Lamar, bro.
Yeah.
I think he's had too many chances. I feel like we've been at a point where like intangibles can only bring you so far, And I think, at least for Lamar's sake, he's lucky he's on a team with like 2 mega superstars.
Yeah, because this team could be a lot worse.
Because if this team had one less of those, and next season there's a potential that they have 2 less of those, they would be fucked royally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think intangibles are only getting you so far nowadays. I think you need to have the intangibles, but the skill to back it up. And I think there's very few of those players left in the league. And then I think some of these other players are starting to develop it. I think Slasher's a pretty good case. I feel like Slasher's got the game, but he's also got the intangibles. But Lamar, I don't know, man. Like he's just always throwing up the bullshit, man. Like, and I know there's only so many kills that can go around, right? But like it's not even just the kill death ratio, bro. It's like the damage, like the engagements.
He's leasing everything on this team except hill time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's
he's their worst S&D player.
Yeah, it's not a good look, man. And I get it. Listen, bro, he does help the team, but like you can almost argue like he should be coaching the team at this point if he's bringing those intangibles and helping the team out so much. But
yeah,
get somebody that can,
that.
Yeah, get somebody else that can help shoot, because like they're starting to show these weaknesses in respawn. Like they're starting to lose hard points. Before they were damn near winning like every single one, but we're getting to the point in the year where damn near any of the top teams can take respawns off each other. And the thing that always separates teams at the end of the year is going to be that SND, bro. Because that's something that teams like struggle to like get good at throughout the entirety of like a Call of Duty year. And there's no difference this year. That's why you're seeing FaZe literally win every search. And damn near some of them are dominant searches. They're not even close, bro, because there's such a big gap in that mode towards the end of the year. Yeah, but still. Yeah, I think
no, I think where they are is good.
I think where they are is good. I think maybe put them ahead of Boston, because I still think
Seattle
had a little bit.
We'll probably have to reorder B anyway when we get more teams.
I do have a little quick two-parter though. So like, I feel like a lot of the teams that are kind of like B and lower, they either struggle with one game mode or multiple. What would you guys say, like, for, I guess it's two-parted because there's the team aspect and there's like a solo aspect of it. What would you say is like the hardest game mode for you to turn around and like actually get better at when you're struggling at it, and most important? And then also as a player, how do you, like, what do you do to go about, maybe you're just throwing up stinkers and S&Ds game after game, like how do you fix that problem? Is it a team thing? Like where does that kind of land?
I think if you are, let's just say you're an average Call of Duty player, and I mean like even in the pro level, you're the average pro, like you're a B tier pro. I think the hardest will always be search and destroy, because at the B tier level of pro play, like those are all the B tier level of pro play. Those are always the teams that like they have a decent understanding of the game, where like they can have those pop off games, but they also have those games where they can throw up the stinkers. But the S&D is always going to be the hardest thing to get good at, I feel like. It's different though when you're looking at like the bottom tier of Call of Duty. The bottom tier of Call of Duty, it's usually respawns, because at the bottom tier level of COD, those are the players that are just like they're just not as talented. But in search and destroy, you can get away with not being as talented. It's easier to get good at search and destroy at that level of play. I don't know how to explain it, but that's just the way I feel like. I feel like if you've ever looked at like any tier list in COD, usually the mid-tier level of like teams are always the teams that are like, yeah, they're competitive in respawn, but their S&D is like whack. Like majority of teams, I don't know. But but at the lower level, it's always like, oh, they're the Neslo teams. It's always the same. All the bottom tier teams in COD are always Neslo teams. Am I fried?
No, but I also think that's because like teams like go into it knowing they're better than them, especially in respawn. Like they just straight up know they're better.
Just bully.
Yeah, they just bully them, and then they kind of play with that confidence in S&D, and it kind of backfires sometimes. And you also don't study the bad teams as much, right? Like if you think you're playing a bad team, like you're not necessarily going to study their play. And most of the time, the way those teams do play is they play like a really reckless reckless 50-50 style.
Like
And so it's like
unorthodox.
they just catch you off guard with shit. So but yeah, so moving on to Ultra A tier, James.
I think
Throw 'em in
based
there.
off the level of play they have been putting up when they made their roster change, they look like an A tier team at least. And the reason I'm not going to put them over us is because we still have yet to see that. We haven't seen them like do that at a major, and I don't think their competition this split has been as difficult as like some of the other teams.
Yeah.
But like they've been dominating like the
Well,
people
the
they
big
played
thing, the big thing for me, and this
with
kind of
Hixie, by the way.
this kind of takes out that online LAN debate, is like just the turnaround of Kleenex. Like even from Kleenex online pre-major 2, like his turnaround performance has been insane. Like he's went from like literally a 0.9 to a 1.2 player in like every mode across the board. So obviously like they made that roster change with getting rid of Standy, and you know, I don't necessarily think Hixie is more talented than Standy, but for what we've seen so far, it seems like at least for how he's impacted other players on the team, they've been elevated. So I don't know if there was also personal issues there that got fixed with that change or whatever, but these other guys have just started frying. Scrappy obviously as well. So for me, Ultra going into Major 2 were top 3 team. Then they had like basically one bad day. Like literally, like really, all they really had at Major 2 was one bad day. If you take that out, like they come back and they've been frying. So for me, I think they're still a top 3 team. Obviously people are gonna say like, oh, they're good online, but it's like, yeah, I just think they had one bad day at the event. So these guys are still a lock for me in like a top 4 at the next event.
Were you guys surprised by the turnaround that they've had since adding Hixie, or kind of, yeah?
Not
I'd
necessarily.
say, I mean, I'd say regardless, I think Standy was very good for this team, but like you can't ignore like how good Scrappy, Insight, and Kleenex all like have usually been. So like even if they didn't add Hixie, like I wouldn't have been surprised if like they would have turned it around at some point. Like they're all ridiculously good players in their own right.
But again, what are they turning around? They just had one bad day. Like, you know what I mean? Like they fried
exactly.
all the way up to the event. They won a match at the event, just got super smoked on Saturday. They went 0-6 in map count only on that day. They come back, they make a roster change, they've been frying. It's like, to me, I don't even know if they had anything to turn around. It's just like they just had a shitty day. Which happens. It's happened to a lot of players and teams.
Yeah, exactly. It's two games on the same day, and like
where
some of
that
those
day was
days
insane. Do you remember that day? It was like 7 3-0s.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, everyone got 3-0'd, so they just happened to be on the side of the spectrum that got smoked. Like,
yeah.
and then like all was well after that, and we started to see normal competitive Call of Duty again. So, yeah, I mean, Ultra's always had it in them. They played really good at the last stage, or they placed really well at the LAN event, and yeah, I think these guys have always been a lock for our top 4. They just didn't have a good major. It happens.
It happens. It does.
Sometimes it happens.
Now, one more thing on Ultra, they kind of have like a history of holding players a little bit, like whether it's on their challengers roster or kind of keeping people under contract. Do we see Standy find his way onto another team anytime soon or this year?
I don't think so. Even if that Toronto holding thing was an issue, like even if Toronto was like willing to just let him go, I think the problem is like with the landscape of the league right now, I don't feel like any team is in a position to orchestrate a buyout, and that's the problem. If it was 2020 or 2021, for sure, I think he would end up on another team. But because of where we're at right now, currently in the league, I just don't see it happening. There's like 7 teams that I don't even think would buy out players regardless.
Yeah.
But then you add the fact
there's like 2 teams that would buy players out, and they're the teams that won't make changes. Like,
and one of them just closed esports operations.
Exactly. So, it's probably chalked for him. I think if he wants to keep playing, he'll probably have to do it in challengers and wait for next season. Because yeah, Toronto definitely has a history of holding players, and I mean, you can't blame them. They want to get a return on their investment, man. Like they've made smart moves where they are getting good talent on their teams that people are gonna want, but they're not gonna let them go for free, bro. It is what it is. It's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anyways, on to NYSL, our Major 1 champions.
A tier. I think they're in the same boat as kind of Toronto. I feel like they've looked good in all the stages they've played. They usually look pretty damn good at respawn. They obviously won a major. Their last split, they didn't look good in search, but they made improvements in S&D this split where they've won a couple of them, and they still kept up the majority of their respawn gameplay. So I think these guys are still obviously one of the top dogs. I think them and Toronto have had similar issues, and they ended up going to the event. You know, New York kind of dealt with some unfortunate circumstances with the flights, delays, being the first match, all that stuff. And you just have those days, man. Like sometimes it's just not your tournament, man. But these guys still haven't really missed a beat online in their stage, and they still look like a really good team. So,
But
I'm gonna go ahead
I
and
would
say
put
it.
Ultra ahead of them because Ultra absolutely, in the words of Big Don, Kentucky fried them
Yeah,
the other day.
I would still put them at A.
Yeah, no, definitely an A tier.
Beautiful.
This one's easy too. This next one, you wouldn't got to tell you, James. You already know. Yes, sir. S tier for the Atlanta FaZe. Listen, I think they're gonna stay S tier until until we see some weakness. The fact that they're on like the craziest S&D win streak, basically just firing on all cylinders. Like
It's the hardest game mode to be good at the end of the year, bro. Like it's the game mode that literally will win you events at the end of the year. Being good at search.
Yeah.
Because it's just like you're gonna get, if you get to those game fives, you're always gonna clutch up. Like if you win a hard point, like you're just automatically up 2-0. Like you're not losing series that way, you know what I mean? They're just in such a good spot right now with the way they've been playing, and they obviously won the last major, and you just gotta give them the S tier. Although obviously them being a good team, you still got to be careful with those respawns, man. They're losing hard points left and right, and I know Slasher has been coming on like the flank, for example, and giving us reasons why they lose, whatever, and stuff like that. But still, like, as much as they are dominant in search, like eventually they're gonna lose one. So
yeah, but I
it's,
feel like they're still good enough at hard
they're still
point
good
and
enough at hard
control.
point to
It
be,
wouldn't matter.
yeah, exactly. Because I mean, like we saw them in a best of the best of seven versus Thieves, and they took it like
And to be fair,
5-2.
map one, if Abezy looks left for like 2 extra seconds, they probably win that map too. They lost by a point.
Exactly, yeah. So
like,
it was close.
Now, a little like side question on FaZe, because you guys might have your own unique opinion on this. I don't know. Maybe you'll both agree. Where does Simp and Abezy find themselves on the all-time list right now? I know it's kind of like an off-the-wall question, but they've won so much in a shorter period of time compared to a lot of like people who are also on that list. At what point do like they, whether it's solidify themselves as a certain dynasty roster with the three of them and Celium, or just them two in general being like all-time great SMGs?
I mean,
10
I
through
personally,
15. So you said what, Pat?
he said 10 through
15.
15.
Okay.
I personally don't agree with that, but also I personally just don't like all-time lists, because all-time lists it's so dumb. It's like, bro, time is never fucking ending. Like eventually you're going to have players that are going to accomplish great feats, and especially in like for them, like these guys are obviously going to still have long careers, and they're winning multiple tournaments. They're obviously playing against technically harder competition, even though we've had this debate where like, oh yeah, there's always like a ceiling, and the ceiling keeps going up and up and up, but we're only playing to that ceiling. But still, like these are hard games to be consistent at. You can't even say it's not, because we've already said this game, there's like, for example, this game, right? There's a lot of inconsistencies. There's a lot of like things that lessen the skill gap. If you're separating yourself to this degree where we can call you an S tier team and realize your dominance, that's hard to do in a game that is really hard to be like stand out. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like them being able to do this in multiple titles with lower skill gaps, like stand out this much from their peers. I feel like these guys are obviously some of the greatest talents that we've had in Call of Duty. No disrespect to any of the veterans, me included, man. Like, I think I don't like all-time lists for that reason. So I like, to answer your question, I just can't. It's all-time lists to me are stupid. But I think there's been many great players in CODs in all different eras. But like, you can't deny the amount of talent that some of these FaZe guys have, bro. Like, They're
Yeah.
unreal. They're unreal at games that take no skill. Right? These guys are separating themselves.
Yeah.
Like how? If the game took
James, if
no
you want,
skill, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know if you're able to, James, but I linked you something you can pull up if you wanna.
Yeah. Let me.
If you wanna
let me
replace it over the tier list. It's just a tweet from Breaking Point.
What's the best?
But
way
this
that I-
this kind of goes into just like how I view like a top 5 qualification, and you can still extend it to like a top 10. But it's like certain things that I think have just standout moments for some players, and
There you
others
go.
haven't really hit. But Chris, to kind of like chime in on the time thing, this is kind of how I view it. Like to break into like the top 10, like you have to have competed for like a lifespan of the game, right? Like we're talking about Simp and Abezy careers. Like this is still their like 4th and 5th year competing professionally, right? So it's like it's still so early. Yeah, they've massively overperformed what others, potentially have done, but it's like because it's so early, I don't think you can put them in that echelon yet, because they'll eventually hit it, assuming they continue on their path. Like what's to say if like Simp retires tomorrow, right? And like Slasher continues to play. Like Slasher to me would still be ahead of Simp on an all-time list.
Yeah.
I have him ahead of him right now. But yeah, I mean like this is like some simple stuff like tournament wins, like they'll continue to accrue. And so for me, the reason I have them in like that 10 through 15 is because like they haven't hit these milestones yet that, where I have players in the top 10 have hit. And they will, right? It's inevitable. They just haven't done it yet. And so that's why I still
Also,
have them on that path.
Also, the things to note about that, Pat, is like, dude, 15 tournament wins. Like, bro, we used to have 20 tournaments in a damn season. Like,
Nah,
so
that
it's
was only AW. That was only AW. And
no,
it balanced out.
AW had that.
Bro,
Ghost had a lot of tournaments.
When you look
like,
at when you look back at it, like Ghost really only had I think 9, AW had 15, BO3 had 4, and so it does average out. Like you're still getting like 6 to 7 tournaments a year right now in the CDL, and so I think it does average out. Like, and there was a lot of tournaments back in the BO2 Ghost days where like, you just would skip out on a tournament because it was like a weird tournament. Like it was like a UMG event that like people just didn't even go to. Yeah. So, and think of that like 15, like that counts like those ESWCs that were like gate kept by like a top, only like 2 and A teams could go to or something like that. So, again, it's something that they'll definitely surpass and achieve. But I think it disrespects the people that came before them if you just throw them ahead. When you haven't factored in time, like for someone that played like a 12, 13 year career and were just as successful in their era, I don't think you could put Simp ahead of them just because he's had 4 great years or whatever it is. So.
Yeah. My thing though is like that's why I don't like the all-time list, and I just never ever even cared for them. Is because like you said, bro, like some of these players, it's just inevitable. Like it's just time. Like if you want to like really criteria it, but like in terms of raw talent, bro, like the amount of talent some of these
the one thing you
people
can't
have,
compare though, because there's just so much. Like think about it. Everyone nowadays is playing on a PC at 240 FPS on like the perfect controller, no millisecond delay. The games are made differently. There's dynamic aim assist is stronger. So much has changed that talent is hard to like. And Big T made a great quote or a video kind of explaining this because it was like you're always capped, right? And so like talent in 2013 doesn't visually look the same as it does in 2023.
Yeah, he made.
But it's like. But the talent of someone in 2013 was insane. Like, you know what I mean?
He made the light bulb comparison with Thomas Edison. Like he wouldn't have Thomas Edison come over and do his electricity at his house today, but that doesn't mean that he wasn't like one of the smartest people in the history of the world.
Yeah. Basically what you're saying is like if let's say we were 18, 19 years old during this era of Call of Duty, who isn't to say we're not playing at the level of Cellium, Simp, whatever,
because what we were doing at that age on those
was
games
considered that level of play.
exactly, or objectively better or worse, whatever. Like it's just impossible to compare because like people go back and they just eye test it and it's like well, this looks like anybody can do it. And like we're playing on like 30 FPS,
With clunky
Xboxes,
controls,
with
like
shit hit reg. Yeah. So it's like,
yeah.
it's just a way different
You
argument.
you make a lot of sense. My only thing is like we obviously stood out on games where like it was hard to be good, but like dude, for them to stand out like to this level in Call of Duties that genuinely take like way less skill than some of these others games did, that's fucking hard, bro. Because like, bro, you almost like at the mid tier of Call of Duty. I'm gonna use this term a lot now. Apparently, it's almost like everybody's POV looks the same, but when you go and watch those motherfuckers play COD nowadays, they look like different. Like I feel like I can go and watch a player blindly without knowing his gamer tag and know it's Celium. Like I
Well,
can
yeah, because
blindly
he's
damn know
snaking
it's
like a maniac.
well, yeah, but I can know Abezy's POV. Like even like players like Shotzi, for example, like some of these players are just like they just stand out from their competition in an era that it's hard to stand out in nowadays. Like
Which is the crazy thing
because of what the games are made for. Like
and then you think they made like every grand final last year and didn't win one. Like it's crazy. Like there's I don't know. It's just something that's like it's impossible to compare at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's why that's like I said, that's why I don't like all time lists. I feel like everyone's always been great. There's some of these players, there's no
But I will say with how the Call of Duty community works, recency bias in the community is insane. Like insane.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah.
Bro, I remember when Breaking Point was doing these top 10s and people were like, "What? How is Hydra not top 3 all time?" And it's like, what the
different eras, bro.
He's not even top 30. What do you mean?
Different eras, dude. Different skill sets. Like back in the day, it wasn't like being super fast and cracked. It was like your communication, your thinking skills, decision making was much more important because we were fucking limited by our controls, bro. Like obviously we couldn't have this
and the movement mechanics in the game.
Yeah, obviously
but
we couldn't have this insane gun skill.
Wait,
like
to be fair, I will die on this hill. I actually think shooting is harder on those games, and the main reason is the strafing. In the last like 6 years of COD, players have not had to shoot against actual strafing players.
Well, hold on, I agree with you, but that's dude. The gap between controller and keyboard has closed so much, at least in Call of Duty, because of I've had this conversation with you about talking about your game. I won't say anything bad about your game or anything, like, by the way. But what I'm saying is like Call of Duty's controls are so absurdly like dialed in that like it's hard to replicate from any other shooter. And that's what Call of Duty's always been able to stand out with, is like how like smooth on controller your character feels. Like, bro, you're moving, it's like it feels so accurate.
But it wasn't always like that.
It wasn't always like that.
No.
Exactly. Back in the days, like I'm saying, dude, I'm sorry I couldn't shoot this well when I was playing BO2. We had like hella delay and shit. Like, and the controllers were just like, the controller was fine, but I'm saying like the actual like hardware and software behind it didn't allow you to be that accurate. The aim assist, the curve, the like nowadays, bro,
the hit reg on a 360 console.
You can be pinpoint accurate. Like, it's crazy.
And the strafe speed back in Black Ops 2 was.
Yeah, so you combine the strafe speed with like the fact that it was impossible to hit people. Like hitting people was a fucking skill. Like it was hard. It was hard.
Of course.
Anyways, we'll reel it back in, but I enjoyed that. So we have 2 teams left before we get to the community questions and announcing the winner of the Egg jersey. Florida Mutineers.
Top of C. I just don't think they're good enough to be in B yet. I haven't seen enough.
I think they're top of D. I'm still at a point where, like I said, as much as the team makes
no, because we said this. D is like hopeless. I at least have some level of hope that these guys can Neslo a series.
Well, no, but my thing is, I just don't think I'm going to see them at champs, and that's where I said D is for me. It's like I just don't think they're going to make champs. I think C might have a chance.
The thing is, they've actually gotten a decent amount of wins under their belt already, though. That's the problem.
What did they just beat the other day?
Yeah, but they're underneath Vegas right now still, and they're underneath Seattle. Bro, Seattle's our 8th team. Did you know that? Seattle's 8th.
Crazy.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, there is actually a pretty big gap.
Yeah, it's a gap, bro. Like, I don't think we're gonna see
I
these
mean,
guys
listen,
a chance.
listen, bottom of C then. Bottom of C.
You can say bottom of C. I'm gonna say top of D. But it's up to you, James.
For the unison of the graph, well, it'll change after this next pick, but
The reason I say they're top of C is because I think they're or bottom of C is 'cause I just think they're objectively better than the Ravens and the Gorillas, like objectively. I have more faith in that team than I have in both of those other teams. And at least this team is making fucking changes. Like they've at least tried to improve. So that gives me faith that maybe they'll continue to try to improve after, major 3 if they don't get the performance they want. But like London, I just think they won't change and they're gonna suck. Gorillas won't change, they're gonna suck. So I at least have some level. I'm not out of hope on these guys.
We're giving them a thanks for trying bump to cease.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see how they do at Major 3.
We're
And then
giving them
D.
a you tried button.
Yeah.
We're giving them 2 weeks. 2 weeks to show us something, and they're back to D.
Yeah. All right, that's fair.
Minnesota, the Rokkr.
I think these guys are horrible.
I think these guys, like, dude, they had a decent major performance, and that's the only reason. That's the only reason I would put them in B. But like the way they've been playing in this split specifically is fucking C tier at most. Like,
Dude, they've been getting world start in every series.
oh
They
my
haven't gotten
god,
kills.
dude.
They haven't. They just get broken every hard point. They look bad at every mode. They choke.
They won a game. They haven't won a game yet, right?
They're 0-3. They're 0-3.
And
Might be
all of them
0-4.
were all of them bad.
They got 3-0 today. They got 3-0'd by another team. I think they had a 3-1. None of them have been good.
They beat New York, no?
No,
Did they beat New York?
So.
I think they beat New York. Can you check, James?
My screens are all.
Hold on, I can tell you. I can tell you. So they lost 3-0 to OpTic. They lost.
They got
They lost 3-0 to Surge.
Yep.
And they lost 3-2 to Subliners.
Oh, they didn't win versus Subliners.
Yeah, no, they've lost everything, bro.
Yeah, these guys are playing C tier right now, top of C tier, but I still think they're B tier overall, just because of how they played at that major. But the way they've been playing,
but I don't know though, because like think about their major 1, like they weren't anything impressive there. They weren't that impressive in the online major 2. I just think they massively overperformed that like 2-day stretch in Boston. And then since then, it's just been like, yo, where does your talent go?
Yeah, but I still usually put a lot more merit in the events than I do. Like, obviously, even though the merits are like only 3 days, 4 days of tournament time, I still usually put merit into those. I still would put them at bottom of B because I think I want to say, even though Seattle was getting absolutely turned on World Start in the last stage, when we did a tier list, we put Seattle and B at the bottom, like when they at the bottom. Y'all might have done that,
but I would have been begging for them to be in the bottom of the bottom.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess we can put them in C, bro. Like they've been getting World Star Kentucky Fried, bro. Like it's been bad. It's been bad for sure.
Ordering wise, to me, this looks right. Except, I still don't think I would put Boston in the middle at B. Like. I don't know about you, Chris.
No, I wouldn't put them in the middle of B either. I'd put them. I'd put them underneath. I'd put them underneath Surge.
Yeah.
Because I still think they haven't really. They beat Toronto with Standy, and like they were already having issues with Standy, which obviously they caused them to change. But then they've lost to fucking Florida, so like
yeah,
they still have to play higher tier talent. Like more complete talent before I can put them like any higher or like reliably have them there, because like I said, bro, these guys can turn around and get absolutely World Star turned on by the other teams, and I'm even questioning them being in B. So I think bottom of B is pretty fair for the level of competition they played right now and what they've shown.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I think this is overall
screenshot it, book it,
the best list we can possibly put together currently.
The halfway mark on the year.
And I will say our top 4 and our bottom 4 I think is exact. Like in order, top 4 to bottom 4. I think that's perfect. And then
I
it's
think
just
our
like
top 4 are
the middle 4 is Middle four
I
is
think our
like
top four has
any
been
day.
pretty much. I think our top four has been good, but you know what I like currently about our CDL and like it being super competitive is like I feel like these all like even like even like Surge and OpTic right now, and Boston maybe are like one small thing away from being able to like beat the top four teams like consistently, like or or
I
make
don't know
them or
about
not beat them
consistently.
consistently, maybe not beat them consistently, but like be consistently competitive with them. You see what I'm saying? Like I think OpTic, obviously they got
Yeah.
top four, but they still need to fix some of their team issues with their teamwork and stuff like that. I think Seattle just needs to improve in S&D so they can make some of these series a lot more competitive. And Boston needs to fix their ice because we've seen them take the likes of even like FaZe to map 5 and like they just need to consistently be able to kind of like sort out some of these issues that they've had. So like I don't know, we have a really competitive league at the top half now. I think before like we had like 2-3 teams that we had faith in would like 100% like have good series, but nowadays I feel like we have a good like mix of teams that can have good series against each other if one team is playing really well, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna theoretically, if you had to pick a team, I don't know if I want to include OpTic or exclude OpTic because we'll include them. B and lower to pull out a major win this year. Who would you? The only reason I don't want to put OpTic is because it's their home major next. So it's
I
like
wouldn't pick them anyway.
okay.
B and
Who would you-
lower.
who
If
would you
one
pick
of
from
these
B or
teams,
lower to win a tournament?
yeah, if you had to pick, place a little bet, the return on it was high.
Seattle, and that would only be if they dropped Lamar. But I could see them easily winning if they did.
I would say OpTic. Just because like if Dan can play, if Dashy gets back on his bullshit with how Dan plays and he plays well, like hypothetically if they can mesh that with how Hook has been playing at least currently right now online, like I feel like they're all set to improve. Like Shotzi's been playing really well. He's been playing a lot more consistent. Hook has been playing good. Dashy kind of fell off individually in his performances, but I feel like it's hard. I feel like the fact that their subs are doing really well puts them in a good position because that's like the hardest shit is when you have like to have good subs like playing well. If their ARs can pick it up a little bit and they can continue to be good against some of these good teams, I could see them winning a major if they all go to an event. Like let's say for example, if even after the last major, right, where they had Illy, like if they had another player up there with Illy playing that well, or with Dashy playing that well, like who knows, they could have pushed it further. Like, so we'll see if those guys get hot, I think they can win a major. I'm not saying they're gonna win the next major, but I could see them winning one this year if they all get hot.
Valid. Alrighty, well we will move on to the eggs giveaway. Alrighty, so
Who is it?
the winner, I'll read you the comment first. And this is how I know we got a good one. We got a good guy here. There was a total of, I think, 391 comments. And the winner commented his Twitter. And he said, I would frame the jersey. And my favorite memory was CWL Seattle. Me being the only one rooting for Aches. And got second, but best day ever.
Dude, we should have won that event.
And his name, it's Phantom US, but his Twitter's Zipsy. Zipsy, I will follow you and message you on Twitter and get your information. And then I'll get that over to Mr. Patty P. And we'll get you that jersey.
Thank you for rooting for me, because that was, there was not many in that crowd that event, James, that was pulling for our EG squad. But we made it to the winter finals or grand finals, and then just I still silly, if you're watching this, you know what I'm gonna say. Silly costing me that one.
But yeah, congrats, Zipsy. And again, guys, we plan on having some more cool giveaways and stuff throughout the season. So make sure you're subscribed.
I actually just dug it up. The C9 jersey. I just dug it up.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna Zipsy, you're gonna have to tell me whether you want a medium or large, but I'll find that in your DMs.
And if you want it signed or not.
Yeah. I mean, probably. Given the comment, I'll take a wild guess and say that his answer is going to be yes. Community questions. I had one, but then I remembered that I asked it last time and we burned it out through the last one. This comment section last episode was so filled with the giveaway stuff, so it was a nightmare to go through. But guys, please ask questions in the comment section that you want me to ask to them. If you've ever had a dying question for Pat or Chris, put it in the comments, upvote other people's, and let's get on to the pick-ems for next week. So
Do it.
Sorry, you said what?
I said let's do it.
Oh, okay. I picked 3 matches. First being Rokkr versus Vegas.
Ooh, I'm gonna go with Vegas, and I'm gonna assume that Rokkr stays on their downward trajectory of not being able to get a kill or hold a hill. So I'm gonna go Vegas 3-2.
Yeah, if Rokkr just continues to play like they have been, bro, like Vegas is gonna beat him. Rokkr just have looked so bad, bro. Like it's been pretty bad.
On to the second. Boston Breach versus LA Thieves.
Thieves. I think this one's gonna be a smoke show, James. I think Thieves is just better across the board, but also Thieves has always had Breach's number online. If you guys think back to Vanguard when Thieves like 3-0'd them in like 20 minutes, it was like the fastest series ever. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Thieves here.
The last series they played was close though. That was when Boston choked the game 5. Yeah. Chris, thoughts?
I'm still gonna go with Thieves, bro. Like Thieves is a really good team. They've been playing a lot better online, so I have faith they will.
But keep in mind, Boston
here.
is still deemed as the best online team by all pro teams.
Still?
Yeah, apparently. So Octane said today.
Jesus.
Such a weird title to have.
Yeah, they just fry everybody in scrims.
Yeah. Like, dude, it's so strange.
I mean, some people get effort. I mean, as you want to put as much like effort into practice as possible. It's not to say people don't put in effort, but it's just subconsciously, it's hard to just like get in that tournament mode in even like a league match, bro. Like in online scrim, like it's hard. So
yeah.
Makes sense. Some people are just better in that environment. Happens.
And the final match, we can do a little 2-parter in here because I think everyone's kind of curious to see these next 2 matches for OpTic because they are both going to be tests. We have OpTic versus NYSL and OpTic versus FaZe.
I'm going to go, it's going to be a 3-0 for FaZe in that one, and I think it's going to be a 3-2 for NYSL.
I don't know map counts, but I think FaZe is going to win. And I could see OpTic taking the New York match just because OpTic's been good at search, and at least their respawn with Dan, maybe they've finally been able to make improvements with Kyler playing really well and Shotzi playing really well. It's really going to come down. That New York series is going to come down. They need Dashy in that series. Like he has not been playing good statistically. Outside of, well, he played good in this one, but in the first hard point, he didn't play particularly well. But he did play good in this series that they just recently won versus Rokkr. But he needs to step up, period, versus these good teams. He has to. If he doesn't play well versus New York, they're not going to win. So I could see them winning, but I've been rooting for OpTic this entire split. I think this match I'm gonna go against them, and we're gonna say New York wins.
Tough weekend coming up for the OG fans.
It's gonna be hard, man. It's gonna be fun to watch though.
Yeah,
like
which is needed after this last weekend. I hope they have good
games. I hope they have good games. Like the last time OpTic played FaZe online, that was the banger where OpTic beat them, but that was a fun series to watch because dude, Dashy was literally a record breaker. That shit was nuts.
That was a reverse sweep, right? Is that the last time they played? Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully we get some entertaining series because this week's matches were so bad.
Yeah.
Listen, Friday's gonna be rough, and then it starts.
Yeah.
Friday's gonna be rough, bro. Yeah. Oh, I might take a hiatus.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for tuning in for another week of the reverse sweep. Again, we had some tough matches this weekend, but we pulled a tier list out of out of the bag. And next week will be the final episode before Major 3, before Doug comes back again. Doug pops his head back in. And yeah, that's going to do it for today's episode. Again, make sure you like, make sure you comment any questions for these guys. Make sure you subscribe. And yeah, anything from you boys?
Just make sure they subscribe so they can get in on all the giveaways that's coming up, James.
Beautiful.
Yeah, make sure y'all get in there, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate everyone.
There we go. Alrighty. Deuces.